How's it going, everybody? I'm Mike, and you're watching Harvest Youth Online. What's up, y'all? This is week 2 of the sermon series Goals, where we're talking about, you guessed it, setting and achieving goals. But not just any goals, God-sized goals. We set goals all the time. Finish my homework by 7. Make the volleyball team. Get my crush to notice me. But after you set a goal, have you ever felt stuck? If you've ever gotten stuck trying to achieve a goal, don't worry, we've all been there. But what matters is how we get unstuck. There's a quote I heard years ago that I absolutely love. A goal without a plan is just a wish. There's many accomplished people out there that we can use as examples of this. Michael Jordan and his amazing athletic career. John Mayer and his incredible musical talents. Or Stacey Allison, who was the first American woman to reach the summit of Mount Everest. So how did they achieve so much? Were they just exceptionally talented, smart, or lucky? Maybe. Or maybe they just knew the power of a well-executed plan. While some of us may be more naturally talented in certain areas than others, we are all capable of accomplishing big things. Whether it's learning a new skill or changing the world, God gives all of us the ability to solve problems and make things happen. But to accomplish anything, we need a plan. So what is a goal that wouldn't be possible without a plan? It might be a spiritual goal, like spending time with God more regularly. A mental goal, like learning something new. A physical goal, like trying a new activity or getting stronger or faster. Maybe it's a relational goal, like being a better friend or being more kind to your family. These are all good goals, but without a plan, they're just wishful thinking. So what about you? What is one of your most plan-worthy goals? Remember how last week I said that I wanted to be a famous musician. I wanted to be the greatest of all time band. Well, my idea of fame is a lot different now than it was when I was a teenager. I may not have met my goal how I originally imagined it, but I feel like I accomplished what I set out to do. I wanted to be a musician by trade. I wanted to make a living in the music world. It never crossed my mind that I would have this opportunity within the 4 walls of this church. All of the time that I spent honing in my skill wasn't for nothing. With the help of very talented musicians from my past and from talented musicians here at Harvest Church, I am continuing to grow musically. I used all the resources that I could find in order to be the best that I could possibly be at my craft. I'm very thankful for the many people that have helped me along the way, but I can tell you, without God blessing the road that I'm on, I would have never reached my goal. I don't tell you that story to brag about how good I am at achieving my goals. I tell you because if I can do it, I know that you can do it. If you're not convinced, maybe the next part of Nehemiah's story will convince you. First, a little recap from last week. We're looking at a book from the Old Testament called Nehemiah, written by Nehemiah. About 140 years before this book was written, the Jewish people were conquered by an enemy army. They destroyed the city of Jerusalem, they burned the temple where the Jewish people worshiped God, and sent many of God's people into exile. But God promised that one day the Jewish people would return. When the book of Nehemiah begins, some of God's people had begun returning to Jerusalem, looking for ways to rebuild what they had lost. But it was a long process. And Nehemiah was passionate about seeing Jerusalem restored. But he saw a problem. Although some of God's people were living in Jerusalem, the city walls were still in shambles. So the practical problem was this: without walls, God's people would be vulnerable to an attack. The spiritual problem was this: leaving the walls in shambles dishonored God, but rebuilding them would be a sign that their people were returning to God and choosing to be obedient again. Inspired by his love for his people and for his God, Nehemiah set a God-sized goal: rebuild the walls of Jerusalem so God's people would be protected and God would be honored. So Nehemiah had a goal, but what about a plan? If you remember from last week, the first thing that Nehemiah did was spend time in prayer. He fasted and prayed for months. Nehemiah chapter 1 verse 4 says, "When I learned these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven." Nehemiah chapter 1 verse 11 says, "Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of this your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. I was a cupbearer to the king." There's 3 things I notice in these verses. The first one is Nehemiah didn't ask God for step-by-step instructions. He knew God wanted him to lead the charge to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And that was enough. He didn't just say, well, I'm going to sit here and wait for you to tell me what to do next. No, he started planning. The second thing is this. By the next time he reached the end of his prayer, Nehemiah was already working on his plan. He asked God to help him be successful in what he was about to attempt. I was cupbearer to the king. This is helpful information for us to know, but I think it has another purpose, and it shows us the third point. Nehemiah was making note of the resources that God already blessed him with. As cupbearer to the king, he had access and influence with the most powerful person in the kingdom. To sum it up, I guess you could say that Nehemiah planned while he prayed. Grab out your Bible, you can read along with me. I'm going to look at Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 1 through 9. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before, so the king asked me, why does your face look so sad when you are not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart. I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire? The king said to me, what is it you want? Then I prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city of Judah, where my ancestors are buried, so that I can rebuild it. Then the king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked me, how long will your journey take, and when will you get back? It pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. I also said to him, if it pleases the king, may I have letters to the governors of Trans-Euphrates, so that they will provide me safe conduct until I arrive in Judah? And may I have a letter to Asaph, keeper of the royal park, so he will give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel, by the temple, and for the city wall, for the residence I will occupy. And because the gracious hand of God was on me, the king granted my requests. So I went to the governors of Trans-Euphrates and gave them the king's letters. The king had also sent army officers and cavalry with me. Is anyone thinking, why are we reading all these boring details? If that's you, just stick with me. In these verses, we discover that Nehemiah hasn't just been praying and casually planning. He had been preparing in great detail. The king asked Nehemiah why he looked so sad. He had an answer that was prepared. The king asked Nehemiah what he wanted. He had a request that was prepared. The king wanted to know how long Nehemiah's journey would take. He had a timeline that was prepared. And since the king seemed pretty open to his ideas, Nehemiah also had a list of requests prepared. Throughout this process, Nehemiah continued to talk to God in prayer. But he didn't wait for God to do all the work. He used the strategic mind that God gave him to plan and prepare while waiting for the right opportunities. Because Nehemiah prepared in detail for the opportunity he hoped he would get to speak to the king, when God arranged the perfect moment, Nehemiah was ready to take full advantage of it. To sum it up, Nehemiah prepared while he planned. Nehemiah already had a plan in place, but now it was time to recruit others to help him make it happen. But now he needed to figure out how to deal with the people who definitely didn't want to help. Now we're going to look at chapter 2, verses 10 through 20. Total side note, I love reading biblical names because I never know if I'm going to pronounce them right or wrong. And it's fun to hear how other people pronounce names. If you think I'm saying some names funny, leave a comment in the comment section down below and let me know how you pronounce these names. When Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official heard about this, they were very much disturbed that someone had come to promote the welfare of the Israelites. I set out during the night with a few others. I had not told anyone what my God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. There were no mounts with me except the one I was riding on. By night I went out through the valley gate, toward the jackal well, and the dung gate, examining the walls of Jerusalem, which had been broken down, and its gates, which had been destroyed by fire. Then I moved on toward the fountain gate and the king's pool, but there was not enough room for my mount to get through. So I went up the valley by night, examining the wall. Finally, I turned back and re-entered through the valley gate. The officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, because as yet I said nothing to the Jews or priests or nobles or officials or any others who would be doing the work. Then I said to them, "You see the trouble we are in? Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace." I also told them about the gracious hand of God on me and what the king had said to me. They replied, "Let us start rebuilding." So they began this good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official and Geshem the Arab heard about it, they mocked and ridiculed us. "What is this you are doing?" they asked. "Are you rebelling against the king?" I answered them by saying, "The God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding, but as for you, you have no share in Jerusalem or any claim or historic right to it." So Nehemiah gained a couple enemies during the process. When you're working on a God-sized goal, that usually happens. But once again, Nehemiah was ready. He wasn't naive. He expected people to oppose him. He knew to hold his tongue and keep his plans a secret from those who opposed him. He was wise about who he trusted. He figured out a way to bypass the people who opposed him so he could recruit people who shared the same vision in his God-sized goal. He surrounded himself with the right people. To sum it up, Nehemiah planned for opposition. God gave Nehemiah a huge task to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. But God also gave Nehemiah everything he needed to accomplish this huge goal. Nehemiah had access to God through prayer. He had his God-given talents, abilities, and passions. He had the resources, the opportunities, and the connections that God had given him. And he had other people. Although Nehemiah's God-sized goals probably scared and overwhelmed him at times, Nehemiah didn't give up or wait around for someone else to handle it. Nehemiah made a plan. Although Nehemiah's goal was extraordinary, he understood that the tools he would need to accomplish it were ordinary and already available to him. Nehemiah took the vision God had given him, the skills God had given him, and the resources that God had given him, and he got to work. Nehemiah trusted that accomplishing this God-sized goal was exactly what he was made to do. And just like Nehemiah, you are designed for God-sized goals too. Think about one big goal that you've achieved. Got it? Good. I don't know how you achieved your goal, but here's what I do know. You were able to achieve it because God designed you to do big things. You have a brain that can strategize, people who can help you, and skills and resources to see your goals accomplished. If you're not sure what you think about God right now, or you're not sure that you have any God-sized goals, it's okay. What I'm going to share with you can still help you achieve whatever goals you have. If your goals right now are all about what you want to do or achieve for yourself, the story of Nehemiah can teach you some important wisdom that will help you achieve your goals no matter what they are. But I will challenge you to think bigger than that. God designed you to do big things, even bigger than getting into college or making the soccer team. Chase after your goals and don't settle for the goals that only benefit you. Like we talked about last week, try asking God what else you might be designed to do, because God has big plans for you, God-sized plans. If you think you might have a God-sized goal growing in your heart, that's great. Maybe you wrote something down last week and you've been thinking about it ever since. Either way, there are 4 things that I see in Nehemiah's story that I think can help us turn our God-sized goals into a plan of action. God designed you just like he designed Nehemiah, with everything you need to accomplish the goals that God has put in your heart. You've got a mind that can think, plan, and strategize, a unique blend of skills, experience, and knowledge, God-given interests and passions, friends and family, trusted adults, teachers, mentors, and coaches, access to knowledge from experts through books, videos, the internet, access to influential people who can help make things happen, either in person or online, money, supplies, an audience, a location, a platform, an opportunity. We all have days where we feel insecure about who we are or what we can do, but God designed you with care, intention, and a purpose. When God gives you a God-sized goal, ask, what do I bring to the table? How can I contribute? You have others, just like Nehemiah discovered. Most God-sized goals can't be achieved alone. There's a lot we can accomplish on our own, but if we want to make lasting change, we're going to need other people. When God gives you a God-sized goal, ask, who can I work with? You have things. Just like Nehemiah needed transportation, wood, letters, and the king's blessing, you're probably going to need things to accomplish your God-sized goals. When God gives you a God-sized goal, Ask him, what do I need and where can I get it? Everyone's God-sized goals will need different things, but maybe for you, it's God. Most importantly, you've got God. Whether your goal is an everyday you-sized goal or a once-in-a-lifetime God-sized goal, God is with you, just like God was with Nehemiah. Like Nehemiah, God is probably not going to give you a step-by-step plan for achieving your God-sized goal. But that's okay. You don't need one because you already have everything that you need. Like Nehemiah, you are designed for God-sized goals. You've got the bricks. Now what are you going to build? All right, guys, that wraps up week 2 of our sermon series, Goals. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a blessed week. We'll see you next Wednesday.